figured I would finally, as promised long ago, shortly explain the whole story that I might have referenced a few times about Johnny Depp and basically the video that I saw him in with my male friend when my male friend was about 3 or 4. It was like in like 89, 90, something like that, right in the beginning of 21 Jump Street, and Johnny was, just getting famous. This is the story I contacted Isaac Kappy about, and that you may have heard him mention while leaving my name out. He did that because I, at the time, was too afraid to attach my name to the story because for my children. And I wasn't quite as confident in the protection I have from Jesus Christ and the Lord. Jesus Christ is the Lord, by the way. God in the flesh. But anyway, so I only have 15 minutes on this. I've got to stop and liking. When I was in high school, I made friends with a guy. I'll call him D. D and I made friends about 9th grade, and he lived really close to the high school. I lived in Sugarloaf Key, so I was like a 30-minute bus ride from my home, and it was more like an hour with all the stops. But anyway, about a 20-minute drive, really, with a car. But anyway, I would stay after school and take the late bus, and I'd go over to his house and hang out. We'd hang out with like our old group of friends. We would hang out around there in Key West, and his dad was really, really cool. His dad was a tattoo artist, and he was like one of the cool kids. Like his dad would like hang out with us. He was, he had like a motorcycle, and he was just really like fun to be around, and like a cool guy dad, right? And so I really liked his dad. And one day he showed us a videotape, just the first minute, and at the time I was so shocked by the video that I didn't ask about, why it was only the first minute. I thought about all these things later, but it was just a video because he said that he had been in a band with Johnny Depp in the 80s when he lived in Miami. That's where they were from. And it was like before Johnny got really famous, and he was the drummer. And he said that Johnny just really loved children, and that when he had D, that Johnny just loved him and whatever, and took him to the zoo and made this video. And now the video wasn't at the zoo that I recall, but it was just, the part I saw was just Johnny with D, and D was little and like a toddler, and he was spinning him around, like when you hold their hands and spin them in a circle. And that was it. And I was really into Johnny Depp at the time. I didn't have a crush on him because I actually always felt like we looked alike, and it was weird, but I just thought he was really cool. And now our friend Justine, who was there, she had a huge crush on Johnny Depp, and Dee had a crush on Justine. So the fact that Dee had never mentioned any of this for, bragging rights, to impress her, was really weird. And his reaction was really weird. He wasn't in the room when the videotape was shown, but he was just horrified when we brought it up. He didn't want to talk about it. He wanted to make it go away as quickly as possible. Very uncomfortable. And normally, his reaction was really strange. There's nothing embarrassing about it. I guess you could say, because we saw him as a baby, right? But now, so at the time though, I just kind of assumed maybe that's what it was, or he was just awkward about it because I don't know, but I remember just thinking about it for a long time, trying to figure out why they weren't, like, his dad and Johnny weren't still close, because if they were so close that Johnny was taking his kid to the park, and not just doing that, or the zoo, but filming it. Now, this was before we had camera phones, so he would have had to bring a camcorder and a tripod and, like, film, you know, him with, you know, Dee. And that's just something that, I mean, at Johnny's age and what he was doing at the time, I mean, he was, like, running around raising hell, you know, trashing hotel rooms. Not long after this, he was, like, a drunk and a drug addict, and he still is. You know, and like for him at that age, you know, what was he, in his early 20s? To be so into kids that aren't his own and they aren't family, you know, that he would film it. It was just weird. It just, to me, it suggested that they were so close that they should still be close, or that they would have had to have some massive falling out to not be close still. And I never really got any answers about that. I couldn't ask Dee because he was so uncomfortable about the situation. So I'd have to talk to his dad. And his dad, so like this was when I was in like 10th grade that this happened. And by the time I graduated high school, his dad was creepy and like got some crush on me or something, supposedly. And so I stopped talking to him for a long time because he was like calling my phone and stuff, like repeatedly, and like being weird. And so I didn't talk to him for a long time, but we still were on good terms. I was never like mean to him, you know. But now I don't even know what to make of that in light of other things I found out about his dad, because so this is what triggered a whole lot of the revelations that I had about my best friend and her family and where I grew up and what was going on down there. Right around when like the whole Pizzagate thing happened and I finally started looking into it, I was talking to my friend, the girl, so Jay, my friend Jay, the one I've been talking about in all the other videos, that her family's, they're Luciferian, they programmed her. You know, she told me, this was before I knew about that stuff. This is what started the process of me connecting all the dots. She told me that, because she dated Dee, strangely, right after we graduated. She lived with him and his dad for a while, and like for like a year or something. And she dated him, and she was telling me how, and I think she might have mentioned this before, but she's a long time, like before this, she even already told me that Dee had told her that he'd been molested. He wouldn't say by who. And he also, you know, said that he had urges like that, and, you know, he's really guilty about it. So I knew there was something weird going on there, but, and I was friends with Dee. Now, I'm going to say Dee is a really, like, in my personal experience, a great, amazing person. He was there for me at a time when, like, everybody else turned their backs on me, out of just pure concern and just compassion. And he really looked out for me when I was at a really low point, you know, and it was never like something where he wanted something romantic with me at all. And he is just a really good person. So this is, you know, I love him as a person, and it's hard to know about these things. Anyway, so she was living there with Dee, and Dee's dad was dating this girl that we had grown up with, who was she was a year younger than us, but she was way younger than Dee's dad. She was like, you know, in her late teens, and he was probably like 50. And she had dated a lot of guys like that. That was like her reputation. Her name was Katie. And so Jay told me that one night Katie came over around 10 o'clock at night, brought her little 8-year-old brother. And she and Dee's dad and the little boy disappeared into Dee's dad's room. And he shut the door and locked it, which he never did. He always had his door open. And they were in there for like 3 hours. And the lights were off. The music was turned up really loud. And during this time, Dee was crying, like he was really distressed, and he told Jay, excuse my language, but he said, he likes to fuck little boys. He was really, just really upset. I think it was really hard for him to know that his dad was doing this in front of somebody, that he was so brazen, and I think it was hard for him to see and know what was going on in that room. This was like, I think toward the end of the 3 hours, but when they emerged, the two left, the little boy and Katie, and Dee's dad was just kind of like giddy. and he, and Dee asked him something like, why would you do something like that or something, and his dad was like, we were just playing cards. And the lights had been off, and so, he was like, how are you doing that in the dark? He goes, we were in the we had a candle lit, we were in the bathroom. And he was like, from the way she told it, it was like a tongue-in-cheek thing, like he wasn't even trying to be convincing. And, he also, I guess Dee pressed him further and said, like, why do you do that? Something like that. And his dad was like, because it's fun. And that was the end of that story. But, it was really weird because that girl, Katie, she had an older sister. I won't say her name. She had an older sister. And I was living in New Smyrna Beach at the time I found all this out. Or, no. I was living in New Smyrna Beach right before I moved up here to Indiana. And I ran into her sister. Now, keep in mind, we're all from Key West. Her sister had moved to New Smyrna Beach, and she was going by a different name. It was very weird. And I had tried to tell her sister this information out of concern, and she wasn't surprised or anything. It was just like, oh no, what did Katie do now? And it was really weird. And they were military brats. They were there, and I was always creeped out by their family ever since I was little. And I don't remember exactly why. I just remember it was weird. Like, I was over at their house one day when I was little. Like, I didn't hang out with them, but it was like something related to Girl Scouts or something like that. And I just remember thinking it was really creepy and weird how they let their little boys, and I don't know if there were little girls there too, but there was like, they had younger siblings, and their parents would let them run around naked. And I just was always really creeped out and uncomfortable by that. Like, when adults were like letting kids be naked around each other. I don't know why, but it would creep me out a lot, and I didn't like it. And so I always had this weird vibe. I got sick to my stomach when I think about this family. And anyway, so once she told me about this with, I'm going to have to make part 2, it's obvious. When she told me about this with Dee's dad, I started thinking about it and like how weird it was that this guy who was just a tattoo artist was able to live the lifestyle that he lived. I mean, keep in mind, in the Keys, not even in Key West, just in the Florida Keys in general, like my friend is living there right now. I have a lot of friends that live there, but one of my friends, she's an insurance agent. She makes good money. She can't even afford to move out of the Keys because her rent for her single wide trailer in the Upper Keys, where it's cheaper, is $3,000 a month. And this is not on a big lot or anything. And Dee's dad had a 2-bedroom bungalow in the heart of Key West, and he was able to afford, a nice classic car and a motorcycle, all on the money a tattoo artist makes, which I don't think is like a whole lot. Certainly, I mean, because his rent couldn't have been any less than $3,000 a month. I'm guessing it was at least, very minimum, $5,000 a month back then. And I thought that was very strange. Once I thought about it, like, how did they afford that? My family had to move out of the Keys just from how expensive it was. And I just wondered if maybe he was doing something else on the side, if you get my drift. I contacted Dee and his dad about this. Now, I wasn't super direct because I wanted them to just respond to me before I scared them off with what I was, referring to, but I heavily implied it. I told Dee, hey, I'm really sorry. I know what happened to you. And, all right, so I'm about to get cut off, so I'm just going to go ahead and put this in a part 2. And this time I'll listen to it first to make sure I have it covered up my mic while I'm talking. All right, guys. Get back to you in just a minute.